Recently, I've read through a lot of online discourse, which you can see more of on my Twitter, and after looking through a lot of people's opinions, I've come to believe that there's a lot of people out there who seem to take video game music for granted. In a lot of ways, I don't blame them. Recently, it seems that whenever I boot up a game for the first time, I'm subjected to what seems to be the absolute loudest sound headphones could possibly produce. I might as well be scripted, because the 4 words that leave my mouth every single time are, "Holy shit, that's loud." Because all of the default audio settings are set to 100. Obviously, because I do it, I won't imagine that other people do it. But because of just how loud these games are, the second I get in game, I slam all of the bars down to 0. And without question, the one to go the lowest is the music. And it sucks because after that, I forget about the music bar entirely and begin playing the game. Next thing I know, I'm 2 hours into Doom Eternal and I'm considering restarting the entire game because I've gone through all of that without music behind it. As I said though, I'm gonna run with the assumption that other people do this as well, and for those that do, I really don't blame you. Music at the surface seems like something that's unassuming. How much does it really affect my game when it's kind of just going on in the background while I do things that are arguably a lot more engaging? I'm kind of busy blowing the brains out of some demons, or fighting a guy whose name is unironically Jetstream Sam, or trying to shove a big rainbow fire chicken into a Pokeball to worry about the music. Actually, that Pokemon example isn't really that good, but you get what I mean. When it comes to subtle things in games, it's hard sometimes to really get an idea of just how much they build on top of each other to create an amazing experience. Things like voice acting, sound design, level design, etc. All of these aren't things that when done horribly wrong will truly kill a game. Obviously, this is dependent on just how good other aspects of the game are, but they're important enough that they're noticeable when they're done either really well or really poorly. Music falls into this category nicely by being the emotional glue of a game. It's that extra bit of immersion and atmosphere when looking over a landscape, that emotional gut punch during a cutscene, or that extra energy you need during a tough battle. When used correctly, it can wildly change the feel of a game, or anything, really. Hell, I can change the feel of this video right now. I pick a track from Sonic Mania and start talking like this, and suddenly the entire tone shifts into something extremely high energy. I switch to a really chill Pokemon track, start talking like this, and suddenly you've experienced a wild tonal whiplash from high energy to low energy. I play this one track from Beastars, at a level that hopefully won't get me copyrighted, and suddenly it makes you feel like we're having an emotional heart-to-heart. But Strixo, you might say, hands shaking over your keyboard. This is a video about video game music, but you just mentioned Beastars, which last I checked is a show about oddly attractive furmen, and isn't a video game. You're absolutely correct. Everything described above about music applies to every single piece of music that has ever existed, which is a lot of tracks. I mean, what truly even separates video game music from just music? Because yeah, one seems to have the words video game in front of it, but both are songs that I can still just listen to. Nonetheless, it's an important distinction, or possibly lack thereof, that I should make, because honestly, there isn't inherently a difference between the two on the level of something like music theory, which I'm really not going to get into because I'm, 1, completely unqualified to cover that topic. I really didn't do well in that class. And 2, I just genuinely don't want to research that shit, if I'm being honest. From the standpoint of a guy who just so happens to listen to music and also listens to video game music, it's all just music. If it sounds good, I'll listen to it. I really don't care. I'd say the largest difference going on here is how the creators of the music approach making a track. For an artist uploading what I'm just going to refer to as quote-unquote normal music for the sake of distinction, not that I actually separate the two, they're creating a track that someone's probably going to listen to in a way that anyone can listen to literally any music. Be it running, chilling at home, or in the venue of a concert, this artist isn't really taking into account exactly how their music is going to be listened to once it's thrown out into the world. An artist creating something for a video game, most likely, there's obviously differing cases out there, is taking into account exactly where their music is going to be, how it's going to be listened to, and on what format or through which technology it'll be experienced. In that way, it's kind of like movie soundtracks, but the distinction there is that an artist composing for a game will, again, exceptions withstanding, know for how long their track will play. That means it's composed in a way where the lengths and even the contents of the track itself will be entirely dependent on how long it needs to play. If the track is something like a main menu theme or battle theme, you might see a shorter track that's made to be looped over and over, but that normally wouldn't work for something like world ambience, because when it comes to those tracks, you need to compose something that people could be hearing for 3 seconds or 3 hours. Thus, you'd have a much harder time getting away with a shorter loop when people might spend just a bit too much time listening to your track and begin to notice exactly where, when, and how it loops, turning it from something that brings enjoyment and atmosphere to something that becomes grating and repetitive over time. Retroactively, these tracks can and are mixed into a more palatable format and uploaded anywhere to be listened to, but that's an extra step that needs to be taken as compared to normal music. Direct game rips can sometimes sometimes be upwards of 10 to 15 minutes of a single track, and so it becomes kind of a must to trim the fat and make sure that all the highlights line up with each other so you can get a more enjoyable experience. However, the real difference between the two here, and why I believe that video game music has a big advantage in its class, is the way in which it's usually consumed. I've already mentioned how music is an inherently emotional thing, but with that comes certain tricks your brain loves pulling on you whenever it gets the chance. I'm assuming most of the people watching already know by now, but something your brain loves to do is connecting experiences and emotions with stimulus. It's why a certain sound or smell can immediately make you remember something that happened many years ago. To relate it to music, it's why a lot of people will sometimes recommend that you listen to a certain song or songs while studying so that you'll have an easier time remembering the information you studied when you listen to those songs in the future. Video game music in that way kind of brute forces itself to be a part of your memories and experiences after you've played a game, whether you like it or not. And that's really just down to the fact that games are an entirely interactive experience. When you talk about what you did in the game, you being the operative word here, you talk as if you did all of the things because you did. You ripped demons in half like they were paper. You fought a guy named Jetstream Sam, and you caught that stupid rainbow fire chicken, which honestly, after using him, you also might have noticed he kinda sucks. Nonetheless, the fact that I even remember Ho-Oh's battle more than Lugia's is a testament to just how much music can affect my memory of a game. And again, as I've said, when music is done wrong, it can absolutely ruin any scene it's incorrectly placed in, or be such an absurd pick that you're left baffled at how, or why, someone would ever choose to play that. Like how in Final Fantasy Strangers of Paradise, a game where, save for one exception, every single clip of the main character has mentioned him killing and or wanting to kill Chaos. That exception is the clip where the main character, after listening to someone else basically explain how sad they are or something, I forget, does this.
Bullshit.
Honestly, I'm not even mad. This is fucking amazing. It has completely sold me on buying this game when it comes out next week. And obviously, just to say this now before I get a bunch of comments about it, music isn't important for every single game. There's a multitude of different scenes or games that are better with the lack of a soundtrack due to the atmosphere it creates. There's also just a multitude of games that could really benefit from shutting the fuck up every now and then. And then there's even games where a soundtrack would really only get in the way, and where something like listening for footsteps or hearing calls from teammates would take precedence over a soundtrack that's constantly in the background. There's also a lot of games based entirely around music, and by that I mean shout out to rhythm games, bro. I haven't played Osu in months, and the thought of the plays I've choked still make me want to do unspeakable things to myself to this day. So if we're gonna talk about experiences related to music, that's an experience etched in exquisite detail into my mind whenever I hear Brain Power from now on. Fuck! Dude, so close! Fuck! So whenever you engage in more discourse about things that are really important to games, consider music. Because speaking to my own experiences here, there's so many levels, areas, scenes, and fights that I've locked away as core memories in my life, and without the soundtrack behind those scenes, they wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. Now, with those thoughts finally out of my head, I'm gonna listen to the Sonic R soundtrack. Mankind really peaked with that one. Apologies for the delays. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe because I'm so close to 80K I can practically taste it.